So there's been a lot of talk over the years about what is the best UFC fight ever, what is the best MMA fight ever. Even outside of the UFC, Patricio Pitbull, I think Michael or Eddie Alvarez, Michael Chandler was up there. Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov was up there. But if you actually look at the UFC fights are just way better than any other organization on the planet. Of course, we all know that Bellator is B League, PFL is second league, third league even. But in my opinion, the greatest fight that's ever happened in the UFC is Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. Literally, okay? I remember watching this during COVID, and it was like I was kind of new to the sport then, but this fight, like, fucking injected shit into me to where I'm like, oh my god, I need to see this. I need to see these brothers fight. Literally one of the fucking greatest scraps of all time. And the fact Dustin was two rounds down going into the third is fucking insane that he was able to get the win, in my opinion, okay? We have amazing fights. Obviously, Roy McDonald versus Robbie Lawler is literally one of the most classic fights that you will ever see in MMA. Like, even McGregor too and Nate Diaz too is a great fight. Poirier versus Holloway too is an incredible fight. I always think Glover versus Yuri is one of the most slept on fights ever. It's genuinely Poirier just has so many bangers. Pettis, Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez. Like he just has so many fucking wars. But this one was different. Literally, MMA fans know you Dustin Poirier. You want to smash your face in? Meet me in New Zealand, 2020. That was like the call out, and then Poirier was saying, "No, I'm fighting McGregor, I'm fighting Connor," and Hooker was like, "Fucking chasing Leprechaun." But there was like beef going into this fight as well, and the fact that the first like 3 rounds were just completely stand and bang. Hooker gassed late on, which cost him the fight, but I just kind of think I wanted to make this video obviously because of how good of a scrap this was, but it just kind of makes me think. Do we ever really see fights like this anymore? What was the last, like Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval was one of the greatest scraps you'll ever see, but we just don't see it. We just don't see these level of fights anymore. We don't see fighters putting it on the line the way Poirier versus Hooker did, and it fucking saddens me, bro. It really fucking saddens me. Why this fight was so special to me? Obviously, it was one of the kind of first wars I really engaged on, but it's kind of when I first kind of noticed, like, okay, there's actually like a little bit more than just oh these boys are scrapping, and you see the kind of like aftermath of it. Like the video is actually called like the aftermath of Poirier versus Hooker. Hooker's completely like discombobulated and he's in like the back of an ambulance. Like he just looks like he said it took him like months to recover from that fight, and Poirier just looks like he'd been through a fucking shredder. And you're just like, holy fuck, these boys are just fucking different breed. And some people would rather watch people play soccer than watch the UFC, which to me is fucking insane. If you go watch this fight, Holloway versus Yair as well. That's another great scrap. As Holloway always says, if you got a friend and you want to get them in the UFC, tell them tune in Saturday night. That's Holloway's quote every single fight. It doesn't matter. He could be fighting. I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything. He could be fighting anybody. Anybody. He could be fighting a homeless person off the fucking street who's smoking crack in the changing room. Like, you got a friend? You want this friend in the UFC? Tell him tune in Saturday night. This is gonna be a scrap. And I'm just like, bro, not every. Well, that's not true. Actually, all of Holloway's fights are just complete and utter fucking bangers. Like, do you know what I mean? And the fact we still have Holloway in the division today is such a blessing that me as an MMA fan, I understand how good it is to have Holloway at the top of the division, and especially looking so good against Poirier. 50-45 Dustin Poirier is fucking insanity, bro. It's absolutely insane. Obviously, we don't really get fights like that anymore. We don't really get fighters like that anymore. You know what I mean? Like Mateus Gamrot is probably the only one in lightweight that's like a Dustin Poirier or a Max Holloway. You know what I mean? Tony Ferguson as well. He's kind of gone. It's just like, are we kind of going in the direction of a more wrestling heavy? Yes, we fucking are. We have Marab as champion. We have Pantoja, who's not necessarily a striker, but I wouldn't call Pantoja, a blanket wrestler. Pantoja is very entertaining. Marab is the worst. Ankalaev, even though I'm picking Ankalaev's TKO Pereira, Ankalaev is a boring as fuck. No one cares about Ankalaev fighting. Okay, nobody cares. At least at heavyweight, we have Aspinall versus Gan, which is just like guaranteed to be either Tom smashes him in a round, or we get Cyril Gan, who's a very good striker with the belt, but got outstruck by Alexander Volkov in his last fight. So it's not a win-win situation by any means. Gan winning. the Tom versus Gan fight. Tom has to chin him in 1 round. He has to. You hear that, Tom? You have to beat this fucking guy. Losing is not an option. Losing is not a fucking option here. Okay. Um. Then you have like Makachev versus JDM, which is an incredible scrap. Makachev, no, in no circumstance should Makachev be in the boring category of UFC champions. It just shouldn't happen. It just should not happen. Okay. And then Taporia, obviously massively entertaining. The champions back then were like Usman, who just kind of got his, hands together. We obviously had the vacant belt, Chandler versus Oliveira. That was a little bit later. That was like a year later, almost a year later. I think. The champs were so good back then. I just fucking the hype around the UFC used to be just next level. Like it just used to be like you'd see a fight get announced and like 6 weeks in advance you'd be fucking just over the moon. You'd be so charged for it. And I feel like we're heading in that right direction. I'm really looking forward to the fights at the weekend. Really good card. And even like Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Salal is a good scrap. The main event's a great scrap. Khalil Roundtree versus Yuri Prohaska is a great scrap. I want to see more bangers like this. Let me know what's your favorite fight. What's the best fight you ever think ever happened in the UFC? And thanks for watching.